What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy. Another replay today. This one's kind of interesting. I actually just finished this, and yeah, it was kind of a funny game. So I go second. I'm playing Sky Striker. My opponent is playing a Madolche deck. I kind of know what they do because they've been around forever, but I don't really know. Like I don't exactly know what the end board is. I just know they get a bunch of cards in hand, and they usually set up like a board with a Link monster. I think it's this monster, and then like some traps that can negate a monster or any spell or trap card on the field. So yeah, it seems like they're a really resource-based deck. I don't know if their disruptions are super good, but essentially this deck, like, everything just returns to their hand instead of returning to their deck, because when they have the field spell, has the effect, and they end up with like a whole bunch of cards, just a whole bunch of card advantage. So if you can't really deal with that, they just kill you on the next turn. And I imagine just does the traditional combo here where he gets the setup. He has the Link monster. This monster allows you to special summon a monster from the deck when it has Pudding Cess as a material, which it did. So he summons out Hoot Cake. He uses the effect of Hoot Cake, summons Messenger Gelato. When Messenger Gelato is summoned, he can add a Madolche spell card. So he adds a field spell. Oh, he actually hadn't used the effect yet, so now he uses the effect. So this is actually not once per turn, which is crazy. So he can add the trap card, which is a trap card that negates something. It could be any card. When they control a Madolche card, I believe, they can target one to shuffle it back to their deck and then negate the effect of a card on the field. He plays Chateau, which returns all his cards to his deck, and then here he is able to use, again, Pudding Cess. None of these cards are, I think most of them are not once per turn. I think, like, Hoot Cake and Angeli, I think, are, but like, Messenger Gelato is not once per turn. Pudding Cess is not once per turn, which is just crazy. He's summoning, like, a bunch of monsters from the deck. His third Messenger Gelato adds another one of the trap, which I believe is actually only once per turn. Thank goodness. So he can't get multiple negates. He gets out the Link monster, which protects his spells and traps from being targeted. So essentially, yeah, it's a really good end board. I think he could have actually made an Abyss Dweller or like some kind of generic blanket monster to strengthen his board a lot more. Abyss Dwellers are like really good going into the unknown matchup, just because a lot, like basically all of Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, cards activate in the graveyard. Even Sky Striker, the field spell, for example, or Ray activates in the graveyard. My hand's pretty good here. I do play 2 copies of the field spell now, so Terraforming's not necessarily dead, but this could be, since we drew both, it's a prime target for the field spell. Like, my hand, it's good enough to break his board easily. So I go ahead and play Reinforcement of the Army, you know, just to grab Ray. He actually ashes here, which I don't think is really correct, because you don't want to ash, like, Reinforcement of the Army. Number one, you don't even know what your opponent's playing, and there are a lot more power cards like Pot of Desires, you know, even Engage. Cards in effect that are more high impact to be stopped by Ash. So he does that. And then again, I just go ahead and activate multi-rolls because I wanted to activate this airspace. Obviously, activating multi-roll first in this scenario is good because when I activate airspace, it'll count for a name. So then later on in my end phase, I was thinking that I could set one additional spell card. It's not necessarily always the correct play, so you kind of have to plan ahead of time to see exactly what you're doing in the end phase because you don't want to give your opponent too much information. Like sometimes you just want to activate the field spell ahead of time before multi-roll, but generally, you know, you want to play multi-roll first so you can get the extra name. He negates right away, which is super early. I haven't even done anything with this multi-roll. Like, guys, hello, like I haven't done anything. You could have waited, I think. So I'm going to change Shark Cannon here, and the reason for that is because this card actually has to target a face-up card. A Madolche monster he controls are in his graveyard. It doesn't have to return the card in order to negate. It's an also effect. But I figured, you know what? I'm just going to banish it since I want to get 3 spell cards in my graveyard anyways. So might as well do it now. In hindsight, maybe it's not necessarily like the correct play. But the thing is because he has the Chateau and the ticket, what happened was this card would actually return his hand. And then his ticket would trigger. So he would be able to add another Madolche from his deck to hand and so on and so forth, and I just felt like he'd get like so much advantage, so I was like, you know what, I'll just do this now and also get another spell card in my graveyard. I'll play the field spell. Here, playing the field spell, using it on my face down terraforming like I mentioned earlier to see what I get, and boom, I hit another multi-roll, which is super good. Because of the fact my opponent actually used the effect of the trap early, I haven't used multi-roll yet, so I can use that effect to send the field spell and then summon Ray. So, you know, obviously I'm scared of things like Golden Match, but he probably would have activated that ahead of time because, you know, if I summoned Ray, he could have chained. But then he has Maxi. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy opened the absolute nuts. I literally, like, I basically lose on the spot. I'm thinking, so what can I do here? I'm under Maxi, I have nothing. But then I actually check his graveyard and I remember that he has the Ash that he ashed my reinforcement earlier. And then I was like, do I have game? I don't because his Pudding Cess is only 25. But then I reread Madolche Chateau, and I'm like, this card actually gains 500 to all Madolche cards on the field, not just his. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have 3k. I literally can go for a game with access code. This is the only way that I could win, because there's no other way I'm gonna win. If I can't do anything in this position. I can't get rid of his board. I could send engage, you know, activate engage and do all that yada yada, but then he's gonna draw a million cards and he's gonna win no matter what on his following turn. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for a game. Hope that he doesn't play Nibiru or Effect Veiler, and, you know, this is my best chance of winning at this point. So, obviously, I have to make him draw, like, a bajillion cards, but at least now I can make the Hulk play, and because I have Widow Anchor, I can steal his 3,000 attack monster, and I would just have enough 3 Link monsters in my graveyard to pop with access code, so I can pop his 3 other monsters and then attack for 8,300, you know, 53 with the access code, and then 3,000 with the XYZ. So I end up going for it, and obviously he didn't prompt any responses. The game didn't prompt any response, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just in there, which is nice. I was really scared about Effect Veiler or Nibiru here, but nothing happened. I was able to gain the 3k, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna activate the Widow Anchor. I have no idea what he had set face down in the back row. It was obviously nothing. I technically could have made another Link after Kagari in order to pop it, but I was like, you know what? He hasn't activated the trap since, like, anything is probably a bluff. I don't want to trigger it right away now. I don't want to allow him to draw an extra card that could be Effect Veiler or Nibiru. So here I pop his card, Link monster. It was really tricky, actually. There it could have been trapped, because this card actually allows you to summon the monster that you add from your deck. So if he was able to do that, then I would not be able to attack for game, because he'd have an extra monster body. That only can be used if he controls a fairy monster. So that's why I popped the Link first. And then when he used effect, I chained it to steal his 3,000 attack, which is also the only fairy he would have. So he would have to add it to hand instead of special summoning. And then here on, I just had the last Link monster, Celine, which I could banish to pop the Messingelado and then attack. And luckily it wasn't like, luckily it wasn't a Mirror Force or anything. So yeah, it's just a really interesting game. Just goes to show, you know, never give up, even if you're under like the worst situation. Take a look at the graveyard, take a look at the cards you have, think about what plays you can make, and there's usually, you know, there's always something that you can do, and sometimes you can just turn around and put victory. So, yeah, if you guys like that, subscribe, and definitely like this video. I'm going to make some more replays. Ciao.